Dennis Stroxek.
Here, we've got a microphone.
Thanks. I'm Dennis Stroxek, live in Durham, work here in Portsmouth in a small high-tech company. So question and a bias. Question is, do we need to rebuild our diplomatic infrastructure? And is that possible in Washington? The bias is, I happened to study with Margaret Mead long in the past. My observation is, America doesn't do very well with culturally complex overseas situations. We tend to see things militarily or in a very one-dimensional way politically. We don't have the cultural expertise or have not harnessed it in the past very well. And Samantha mentions parsing, that sort of microsizing all those different little groups. That requires a lot of dialogue, a lot of ability to listen. How can we make that happen in Washington today?
Well, first of all, we've already talked about the need to recruit an entire new generation of people who are interested and engaged in diplomacy, work overseas, and so forth. And by the way, we actually do have a number of young people who are getting training in some of these areas. It's just that they're working for Fortune 500 companies as opposed to the Foreign Service. And one of the things that we have to think about is how do we make that same talent willing and interested in serving their country? And how do we develop the same kinds of expertise and put people through the same sort of training protocols that Merrill Lynch puts people through if they deploy somebody in Hong Kong or Singapore, right? So it's not as if we don't know how to do this. It's just that for some reason we're not doing it in our government. That's a major problem. The second observation I'd have is that we can't wait to do some of this work until there's a crisis. And this is a chronic problem in Washington. It has to do with our 30-second attention span. So if you want to get to know a country and figure out what are the interests, who are the players, etc., you can't parachute in. And Iraq is a classic example, Iran now being another example, of where we are entirely isolated from these countries, have no idea what's going on, don't have good intelligence on the ground, and then are making a series of decisions, basically in the blind. And that's dangerous for us. Even if we then do have to engage in military action, we are putting our military at peril because we are not in a position to make good decisions. So one of the things that we have to understand is that for the sake of our national security, we have to take a much longer view and invest in developing relationships in these countries and make sure that we've got the personnel that is familiar and that it is an interdisciplinary process where we're bringing in people who understand business, people who understand culture. My mother was an anthropologist, so Margaret Mead reference, that's I'm always hip to. But that's something that takes a long time to build and to cultivate, and we've got to start investing now in order to make sure that it's there for the next generation.
We'll never pay the Foreign Service as well as the Fortune 500 companies. I joined the Foreign Service, Don Peterson, others of us, I'm sure in this room, joined because of presidential leadership. I joined because of John F. Kennedy. And it is just one more reason